From beautiful northern Vancouver Island, it's John Lovelace's Wings Over Canada.
Way up in the northern Manitoba wilderness, there's this marvelous lake. Now, it's huge, and in the old days, the wind would come up and they'd get very big waves on it. It became very dangerous, so they called it Devil's Lake. What happened was the missionaries came along and said, we can't name this beautiful place after the devil, so we're going to change the name. What would the name be? They changed it to God's Lake. Well, out of God's Lake is a river that flows up into the Hudson's Bay area, and it's called God's River. And that's our destination on today's Wings Over Canada.
Okay, we're cruising along here. We just came over the Rockies, just clearing the Rockies now. We're at 11,500 feet. As you can see, the GPS has drawn a great circle route. We're just having a beautiful flight, clearing everything. One beautiful thing about flying up high is you just push the page thing, and you can see you've got 18 airports within 15 minutes of us. We're doing 211 ground speed, and that's in miles an hour. We're burning 18.5 US gallons per side at 29 inches. Manifold pressure 2250 square, and our EGT is right where we want it, around 1350. When you got some of this afternoon buildup, you get a nice smooth ride when you get above the clouds like this. So we got a perfect flight going for us to God's River, Manitoba. Okay, there's I see the beginning of the runway.
South River traffic. River Navajo, Golf November Juliet Lima, joining downwind left full stop for 27.
Gear coming down.
Okay, gear speed.
Gear speed, gear down.
Gear down. And slow to 135. Pretty much right there. Nice. I'll call him back. I'll call him back.
Okay.
Yeah. Here we are.
Not too bad, eh?
Well, they say any landing you can walk away from is a good one. And this one was interesting because we had a 90-degree crosswind, a gravel runway with a slope. So it wasn't that pretty, but we're here and we've unpacked, and what a place to be. We're in northern Manitoba, a place called God's River, and they've got fish here that you wouldn't believe. So it's going to be a whale of a visit. "365 miles northeast of Winnipeg, Manitoba is a place called God's Lake." Now, God's Lake is huge. It's 20 by 65 miles. That's 1,300 square miles of beautiful wilderness, and the place is a fish factory. There's northern pike, there's walleye, and there's huge lake trout. And there's 40 streams that come into this lake, but there's only one river that runs out, and that's the God's River, and it runs all the way up to Hudson's Bay into the Arctic watershed. What a great place right here where the river meets the lake to build a world-class lodge. The strategic location of this lodge, butting up against the Arctic watershed yet still south of the tree line, makes it an ideal location for wilderness exploring, fishing, or for just hanging out. But by far the best thing about the lodge is that it's located on God's Lake. And this is a place where water and sand and trees and fresh air all come together to create a place of timeless beauty, just like it would have been 1,000 years ago. The best way to get an idea of the fishing resource on God's Lake is to get out and get onto the water. Now there's 1,200 square miles and probably close to 1,000 miles of shoreline when you add up all of the inlets and islands. And look, there's nobody out here. And that's what fishing in Manitoba is all about. So there's only one way to get in here, and that's by air. And you can come in from one of these commercial airliners that fly in from Winnipeg or Thompson, Manitoba, or you can fly in with yourself, bring your own airplane. And that's fairly easy to do because you just stop off at Red Lake and somewhere like that and get fuel and come in here. But be careful because they don't sell fuel here, and you got to have enough fuel to get out. Well, I'm really stoked because right here at God's River, I've run into a guy who's flying the same airplane that we're running, and but he's got loads of experience. And Jeff, you're going to tell me all about it, and tell me how to operate these on gravel.
You bet. Just off the top, Navajo is a great rugged airplane for the north. It's been around for years and will be around for a lot of years to come. It's just good for getting off small strips into small areas, carry a load. Very all-weather aircraft, take on some ice very safely and handle it. You're talking about gravel. Up here we got lots of gravel strips in the spring and the fall times. Sometimes we can get a little wet and mushy, and the trick of it is to keep the airplane moving. Now when you go down the end of the runway and you go to turn around here, you want to turn in the wind as much as possible. If you got a crosswind, turn in the wind, and don't let that airplane stop. You want to keep it rolling. Gradually increase the throttles to get your airplane moving. Now, a lot of guys get out here and they're used to asphalt and they go off the end and they stop because it's a short strip and they get on the brakes and they push the throttles and they pick up a lot of rocks.
Worst thing you can do.
Worst thing you can do. You want to keep it moving and
now,
gradually
even if
get
it's
the
a
throttles
short
up.
takeoff space and it's a trade-off, what would you do?
It's a trade-off. Turn near the end of the runway and keep it moving and get on the throttles. You know, a gradual increase, maybe a bit faster than normal, but you don't want to pick up rocks and throw them into the airplane or the windshield.
This stuff here is really what
Yeah.
mucks it up, right?
That's right. Loose stone like this, this is the worst case scenario right now. Wind blowing towards the back, we'll start out, we'll blow a little wind back, and those rocks will just get picked up in the props and we'll throw them all over, and we'll really mess up the leading edges, so we got to be careful of that.
And so the thing is, these are general tips for any prop propeller-driven airplane anywhere. I mean, it's not only for Navajo, obviously.
Yeah.
And okay, now coming in on an approach, and we're coming in on a soft, you know, let's say you've got a gravel runway, and it's shorter, it's only 2,000 feet. Tell me about your approach speeds.
Okay, we have something called blue line, and what that's called, you want to maintain enough speed that if you lose an engine, you can still maintain small control of the airplane, and that's your best climb speed. So we maintain a safe speed until we're committed to land, and then we bring the speed back to an approach speed, 80 knots kind of thing, right down near the runway. It's full flap, and throttles come back with the stick back in your gut. Hold the nose wheel off the ground and just let it roll out.
Well, Jeff, fantastic. When we come back, we're going to take a ride on some boats down the river and see if we can get some big trophy northern pike. We got a broken rod now, so we're just going to use this part. I'm down to my last ring. Then we're right down to nothing. Whoop.